Hello. Today I will be featuring the Yak-9U, the USSR Tier 7 Soviet multi-role line or multi-role fighter. Now, one of the special things about these Soviet multi-roles starting at Tier 5 is that they actually have access to these extremely big cannons. These have advantages and disadvantages. The advantage is that they do a ton of damage. The disadvantage, extremely slow reload, or they shoot extremely slow rate of fire, and they also tend to have different ranges than the rest of your guns, and they also tend to have different shell velocities. So one of the first things I tend to recommend starting at the Yak-5 is that you rebind your firing keys to different mouse buttons. In this case, mouse 1 fires all my guns, mouse 5 fires my big cannon, and mouse 4 fires my machine guns or cannons. What this means is that if I want to pick off targets at max range, I can just use my thumb key, my mouse 5 key, to use my main big cannon to snipe them, instead of causing all my guns to overheat every time or wasting all my guns at the same time. And this is extremely useful, especially on this Yak line, because of the way these guns behave. If you try to lead with one, you'll probably be missing with the other if you only use mouse 1. So you kind of have to learn a bit of a new playstyle. But once you get used to it, it's actually extremely fun, because being able to use this big cannon to just pick off any targets at 1 kilometer ranges is extremely satisfying, but quite challenging as well. Now, the Yak line in general, oh, let's see if I can snipe this guy. Nope. You notice these shots? This is just using the mouse 5. And I managed to nail him, and you see the damage. And that's kind of the thing with this line. Your consistent damage is terrible, but if you land the big cannon shots, you can demolish fighters in one single shot. And that is incredibly powerful. Now, it isn't the best dogfighter. In fact, most other planes outturn it. So you don't want to get into the middle of the clutch. You don't want to get into the middle, especially not alone. You're gonna die very quickly. But it doesn't have the best altitude performance either, meaning trying to do any sort of hit and run doesn't really work, because you can't climb high enough to actually set it up. And if you try to climb away, it's not going to work. The airspeed is not really that special. Zeros are just as fast as you. Spitfires are even faster, and then of course the other fighters that are even faster than this are significantly faster than you are. But in general, you want to end up in situations like this, where people pick fights with you, especially if they go nose in, because then you can line up that easy 45mm cannon shot, and you can just blap them out of the sky. And if they do ram you, I mean, you've done enough damage that it doesn't really matter. Let's see if we can finish this guy. Nope. My engine got broken, and this actually kind of cripples this plane quite heavily, because usually you kind of play low and you turn up and you blap these people out of the sky, as you see I did to this Spitfire. But I wanted to finish him off, but because my engine was broken, I stalled, and now I couldn't finish him off. And now the Spitfire has gotten into a dogfight with me, and if you get into a dogfight like this, well, I missed my big caliber gun and he got the kill. So the big issue is, of course, if your engine dies, you're kind of screwed, because that would have been an easy kill, but because of the engine death, it didn't end up being one. Looking at the score though, you can see I'm easily tripling the score of the second best player, and that's of course the impact you can have in defending a cap. I kind of pushed into mid. I flew around fairly low. Not any sort of high altitude. I didn't even try to go high up and dogfight them. You want to fight outside of the middle of the dogfight. You kind of want to fight next to the massive dogfight. And what this means is, when everyone else is brawling and turning around each other, you kind of want to sit slightly to the side and use your big cannon to pick off targets, because that's what you are the best at. If you get into the middle of them, if you get into the middle of that dogfight, well, then the weaknesses of the Yak line start to show. They can outclimb you, they can outturn you. You don't want to end up in that situation. You kind of want to pick off targets from the side. In fact, the Yak-9U and so forth is probably one of the best planes at reinforcing fights. And the reason why it's one of the best planes at reinforcing fights is you can kind of pick and select any target you want, and if he doesn't notice you and he keeps flying and tunnel visioning, then you can just use the cannon to pick him off. And that means that this plane is an excellent support plane. However, unlike most multi-role planes, this multi-role is pretty goddamn terrible at shooting ground targets. Yes, you have a big caliber cannon, yes, you have 220 mils, but they overheat so damn quickly that you can't really ground and pound effectively at all. So, for example, the Corsair line, thanks to the bombs or rockets and whatever they have, is significantly better at this, and that's something that has frustrated me a fair amount. Also, of course, the inconsistency of the guns. If you miss the cannon shot, you lose the majority of your damage, so you really have to practice, and you have to learn to nail that cannon shot, because if you miss it, well, you are extremely screwed. Miss. See if we can actually finish him. Yeah, got the kill. And we need one more kill on anything really to flip this cap. Flipping caps, you do it by killing either bots, AI, inside the circle, or enemy planes or ground targets inside the circle. If the enemy flies outside the circle and you kill them, it doesn't influence the cap at all. So that's something, if you're about to die, leaving the circle and dying is usually a pretty damn good tactic, because you're saving your team a lot of influence on the capture circle, and your death doesn't mean nearly as much when it happens outside of the circle. Let's see. It looks like they are going to flip this cap. We can see how little influence they have here. Yes, and they do flip. Once again, I turn away slightly. I don't want to go in there. As I mentioned, when you're playing this plane, you don't want to charge right in. You kind of want to line up the perfect target when they focus someone else. You see how we have a Spitfire. He's tunnel vision. He's going in for the fight. One cannon shot. Second cannon shot. Blah. And that's kind of how you want to play it. You support your teammates from the outside. And then when you've dealt with the guys that can outturn you, like Spitfires or Japanese fighters, when you've dealt with those guys that can outturn you, that's when you can get into the battle. That's when you can get in there and brawl, because you do handle fairly okay. Like, the handling isn't terrible. It's just that you're not the god tier turn fighter like Japs or UK, or even like you kind of struggle with Germans. You're kind of similar to them German fighters when it comes to handling, and German fighters aren't turn fighters either. Can I get this kill? I have to turn away because I got an enemy on my tail. Usually in those cases, don't tunnel vision. It's better to just turn away, play it safe. And even though that enemy target got away, it was better to play it safe in this case than overcommit. And at this point, squall line has hit, and I might as well try to flip this cap in this case, because we do have a lot of influence here. And I think if I get a couple of kills, we should be able to flip it. In general, you want to target the light planes. The heavy planes are nice if you get the perfect lineup, but if they do hit and runs on you, then it's very frustrating to deal with them, because, as I said, this plane isn't very fast, and trying to chase them down is not going to succeed. Oh, speak of the devil. Can only see heavies. Let's see if we can nail. I really need to nail his engine with one of the big caliber guns to have a chance to hunt him down, but that's not going to happen. And meanwhile, the other heavy is attacking me as well. I only need one more plane kill, so honestly, that's why I'm staying around. Usually I wouldn't try to flip alone or with just one fighter, but we're so close to flipping it, so I might as well do it, since the game is about to end regardless. These heavies are doing hit and runs on me one at a time, which makes this very frustrating, until I spot this guy, a light fighter. And that's of course exactly what we want to hit. That is, if we could nail the big cannon shot. And we do finally nail it, and we flip the cap. But as you saw there, it's not the best at flipping caps. It's an okay, but the Corsair, for example, has a much easier time flipping caps. What the Yak specializes in is pushing into fights that have already started and cleaning up. It's one of the most nasty planes when it comes to reinforcing fights, because if you don't react instantly to that Yak turning into the fight, well, he's gonna absolutely annihilate you. As you can see here, I did 5,000 damage to air targets, shot down 17 planes, and of course got the rewards that show it as well. I've been enjoying it. It's very strong. The inconsistency frustrates me, but I do have a lot of respect for the Yak plane now, because if you get in a dogfight with one, you'll probably kill it. If it jumps you, you're probably dead before you notice it. Build-wise, when it comes to the Yak, well, let's start with upgrades. First of all, I recommend getting the autocannons as soon as possible, because otherwise you're stuck with normal machine guns, and not only are they extremely limited in range, you just lack the damage. So get the autocannons first, then try to get the 37mm cannon as soon as possible, so you have some sort of big oomph, some sort of big hitting ability, because otherwise you're going to be very starved for damage in general on this plane. Once you have the 37mm, get the airframe and then get the engine fully upgraded, because you are speed isn't exactly your forte, and you want the powerful engine as soon as possible. Once the engine is sorted and the airframe is sorted, then you can work on the 45mm cannon. It's great, it's fantastic, you saw how strong it was, but it costs a lot of XP, and if you have the 37mm, you can do quite well with that one as well, and it's not as big of a priority as getting the engine upgrade. Equipment wise, I just go with the lightweight airframe, which is basically better maneuverability when turning, something you end up doing a lot in this thing, regardless of if you want to or not. Engine tuning, which is something I think is just amazing on pretty much all planes, but well, especially on this one, since you end up slowing down, accelerating a lot, and lining up those perfect shots, then turning out and accelerating again. And there's a lot of engine, like honestly, this upgrade is fantastic on most planes. It might even be overpowered because it's so goddamn good on every plane. And finally, self-sealing fuel tank, and this is mostly because, as it says here, often catches fire, and this plane does very often catch fire. So you want to reduce that chance by 50, and you want to reduce the damage by 50% as well. Consumable wise, universal ammo. I mean, I've tried gold ammo. Honestly, I didn't think it was that special. I didn't really see the big deal. So personally, I just run universal ammo and everything, and I think it's by far been the most consistent. Consumable wise, first aid package. You need to be able to heal your pilot if he gets wounded, because if your pilot gets wounded, your aim becomes absolute garbage. And in this plane, being able to kill someone quickly with the big gun is kind of how you survive. You kill them as soon as possible. So being able to heal your pilot is extremely important. Control surface trim, because the wings do get shot off quite often and the tail gets damaged and so forth, and if you can't line up those shots, well, once again, you struggle. And finally, reinforced control surfaces, which makes you turn better for 10 seconds. And when you do end up in those brawls, especially if you end up against planes that turn better than you, which is many planes, having this extra ace in the hole is very, very valuable. Captain perks wise, priority 1 is probably Engine Guru. You just want that additional engine power, followed by better maneuverability, because you end up dogfighting a lot in this thing. Whether you want it or not, you're not fast enough to be able to pick and choose, you don't have enough altitude to be able to hit and run the way you would like. You end up dogfighting a lot, and you need to maximize your ability to do so. And finally, I have Firefighter, which is, once again, because you have that often catches fire, and fire does so much damage in this game, being able to extinguish it basically without having to do anything special. If you're in dogfighting, you get set on fire, you just keep dogfighting, and the perk will extinguish it by itself. The upcoming 2 points, I'm honestly not entirely certain what I want to go for. I've been quite tempted to go either battle tested, because honestly that pilot injury is a real pain in the arse, or potentially if we get a lot of more guns, you might go marksman and so forth. But honestly, I'm gonna go for the Yak line after this. I'm gonna move away from the multi-role line. I enjoyed it, but I wanna go for the fighter line instead, because I enjoy it more. But the Yak itself is a very strong, like this multi-role, I quite enjoyed playing both Yak-7, Yak-9 and Yak-9U. They all have this big caliber gun that you use in very similar gameplay, and they've all been strong and they've all been fun. But 3 of these planes in a row is quite enough. I want to play something else for a change. Was there anything I honestly missed? Nope, I think I covered all of it. I hope you guys enjoyed this Yak commentary. I'll talk to you guys later.